Welcome to the Women Living Well After 50 podcast. I'm Sulon Carrick and I'm passionate about inspiring, motivating, supporting and informing women over 50 to embrace this exciting time of life. Health and wellness in mind, body and spirit are the foundations for living well, but there is so much more to a life well lived. Each week, through conversations with my guests, I'll be presenting topics that will help us all to live well and enjoy life. So join me as we discover new ways to become women living well after 50. Are you ready to start living? What are you waiting for? Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of the Women Living Well After 50 podcast. I'm Sulon Carrick and it's lovely to have you join me. Now, we live in a crazy, busy and overworked world, don't we? And when we add to that the tendency to people please and be perfectionists, we've created the perfect storm of stresses that lead to body burnout. Now, if you have energy and mood, gut and other weird inflammatory issues that won't go away, then you need to stay listening. Today, my guest is award-winning functional medicine practitioner and trauma therapist Filipa Bellette. In her new book, Ending Body Burnout, Filipa takes us through the three main body systems that burn out, as well as the three key root cause contributors you need to address to end your body burnout for good. So let's go and join the conversation. Welcome, Filipa. It's lovely to have you join me on the Women Living Well After 50 podcast.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Now, I've read your book, which I'm holding up anyway, called Ending Body Burnout. And I thought, where were you about 15 years ago when I sort of needed you? But anyway, it's a great book. And, you actually are the epitome of what can happen when you do take care of your body. You're looking so vital, and I know that your book probably came from a personal experience. So what I'd like you to do is just share with the audience a little bit about your background and how you came to write the book Ending Body Burnout.
Yeah, awesome. So I am a functional medicine practitioner, clinical nutritionist, coach, and trauma therapist. And we have a health practice, Chris and Philly Functional Medicine. And I got into this line of work, it would have been about 12 years ago. So after I had my first baby, I was already experiencing signs of burnout. So I was a workaholic, a studyaholic. I was doing a PhD at the time, and I was already burning the candle at both ends. Then came along a baby after a lot of infertility issues, and that was kind of like the last straw that broke the camel's back. And what happened was, like, I was watching all the other mums improve as the months went on after having a baby, but my body actually just got worse and worse and worse. So every month I just started collecting more weird health issues, anxiety, depression, chronic back pain, chemical sensitivities, histamine intolerance, female issues, gut issues. And by the time my daughter turned 1, I literally felt like an 80-year-old. And I was only in my late 20s at that time. And so that's where I started taking my health into my own hands. My GP had been lovely, but at the end of the day, all my tests were fine with the GP tests. And the doctor just said, I think that's just part of being a mum. And I'm like, I don't think so, because other people are bouncing back, but I'm getting worse. And so anyway, that's where I started looking at the food that I was eating. So I switched from processed foods to whole foods and, just went right into the research there. And I was just mind blown that you could actually heal your body by eating healthy food. That was a big light bulb moment. And things got a lot better. And then I had baby number 2. And this time it was a lovely birth. But after a couple of weeks, I just jumped right back into work. So I was running very busy, high achieving, overdoing patterns. And because I felt so good after baby number 2, I'm just like, okay, yay, I'm superwoman. Let's continue running this business. And sure enough, a couple of weeks later, all the same health issues popped up again. And this time I went a bit deeper and I found functional medicine, which is essentially root cause medicine. And it's looking at body systems that go beyond what GPs and medical specialists test for. So we actually run lab testing to look at gut health, detox pathways, adrenal glands, brain chemicals. And I was really excited when I found that, because there were a lot of imbalances in my body that weren't being picked up on standard medical testing that was definitely affecting my health issues. So I healed my body using functional medicine, became a practitioner, and then everything was going along pretty smoothly until COVID happened. So COVID 2020, everyone probably has their own COVID story. Um, and there was a lot of stress, a lot of financial pressures, a lot of pivoting. Our kids were at school at this time, so we were homeschooling, and all my health issues came back again. And this time also insomnia, which was really horrible because when I don't sleep, I feel really bad and it makes everything else worse. And this time, nothing physical helped. So I dialed back in my nutrition, my lifestyle. I ran the lab tests. I took the supplements, but this time, like, none of my health issues changed. And that's where I started digging into like the deeper, what we call the root cause of body burnout. And that essentially comes back to the baggage in your unconscious mind. So I had a lot of deep hidden beliefs that I was weak and incapable, past trauma that was literally showing up in my body, affecting my body systems, but also blocking my ability to be able to heal. And when I started working on that side of things, everything got so much better.
And, you know, those limiting beliefs, I like to call them, or the stories that we've been brought up with, they're hard to get rid of, aren't they? And they are at the root of a lot of issues in our life. But the other thing I wanted to, you know, mention as well is that for a time, I'm hoping it's changing. Perhaps people like yourself are making, you know, helping us all to change. But we, as women, we used to wear busyness as a bit of a badge of honor, didn't we? Or as you said, you feel like you're a failure if you're not keeping up with what everyone else is doing. And, you know, you're trying to please everyone and cope with life yourself. And you tend to, you know, not take care of yourself in the way you should. And I think that, you know, hopefully we're changing that attitude now, but it really is, as a society, we're looked upon that we have to be all these different things to everybody and even to ourselves. And if we're not, we're a failure. And that's a big burden to carry.
Yeah. Yeah, it's huge. I see that twofold. So, like, culturally, yeah, you said it right. So there's this badge of honor that when you're busy, even when you go down the street and you bump into someone, how you going? You're looking really busy. Like, it's like a good thing. And then couple that with like these self-limiting beliefs start before the age of 7. So, and you don't have to have big T trauma for that to happen. For me, it was standing on a stage um, in front of 100 people, and I had a little 1-minute talk that I had memorized. And when I got up there, I was completely lost the ability to be able to recall the information that I'd practiced, was completely humiliated, cried in front of everyone. And like that was enough to then create this belief that, oh, there's something wrong with me. Like all the other little kids can get up and do their talks. What's wrong with me? I must be weak and incapable. And so you've got this cultural thing of like busy and, you know, and also to be successful, you must be busy, as well as these childhood beliefs that we still, like a lot of the population, the adult population, haven't actually identified and reprogrammed. So I always, actually, it's not, I kind of joke, but it's not actually a joke, but 95% of the adult population die as a child because they've never identified their whole belief system that has been driving their life, and it causes a lot of dysfunction.
So you were fortunate, you know, you've written the book, and it's obviously as a result of you going through your personal journey and burning out yourself. And I know, going back years ago as a young mum myself, which is a long time ago now, but working full time, trying to get the kids here, trying to get the kids there. And of course, it's only got worse with each generation. But we do need to take care of ourselves. Now, you just touched briefly on functional medicine. You need to go to a practitioner for that, don't you? It's not your GP that's going to be able to give you those tests. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. I mean, if you have a GP that is a functional medicine trained GP or integrative GP, then yes, although it's still out of pocket. So from a Medicare standpoint, a lot of GPs who practice in that space are kind of like not your standard GPs. And then there are practitioners like me who, like I started off as a nutritional medicine practitioner, so accredited in that area and then specialized in functional medicine. So it is, yeah, you do have to work with a practitioner who's been trained to actually be able to know what lab tests to run and how to analyze them.
And when you say, there's no out of pocket, isn't it amazing how we don't prioritize our health because we think about the economic side of it, and yet we could go and spend our money elsewhere rather than prioritizing on getting ourselves well.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I had a lot of money issues growing up and as an adult, and I remembered that, even so we live in Tasmania, which is very cold. And even back then when I was younger, I'm like, we're never turning on the heater in wintertime. We got to save the money. But the moment that I got sick, I mean, it was then the pain, the cost of not addressing my health was a lot larger than spending the money on being able to help myself get healthy. So I think a lot of people get to the point when they actually start not even like valuing health to be able to prioritize that and invest in it. And usually the pain is there that's high enough that the cost of not investing in self is actually greater than investing in self.
Now, in the book, you use 3 women as examples, and I really like the way that you listed out their symptoms and things what they were going through. And also in the book, we can find resources and so forth. Now, these women were probably they were still in the working environment and that sort of thing. But what about women who have, heading towards retirement or something like that? Can we also experience body burnout?
Yeah, I would say majority of our clients are midlife women. So kind of like 40s, 50s, 60s. And what I see with older women who are going through perimenopause or maybe in menopause is that you're still carrying all the patterns. So I'm thinking about a client at the moment who is about to graduate. She's doing awesome now, but she had retired. She wasn't working, yet she was still struggling with anxiety, fatigue, insomnia, anger, gut issues, a lot of food sensitivities. And underlying that was she was still running busy patterns. So she was still trying to rescue everyone. She wasn't getting paid for it, but she's like, I'll do that. I'll volunteer for that. I'll look after the grandkids. I'll also care for my mother instead of putting her into a home, which is lovely. Like, that's fine. But it was like she was still spreading herself too thin in the way that she used to when she was a younger mother and a working mother as well. So those patterns don't necessarily they don't actually switch off when you retire. They'll show up in different ways. And then that continues to put stress on the body. And what I find with adults, women, whether it's women or men, but as we get older, the more that we haven't dealt with the baggage in the unconscious state, the louder it starts screaming at us. And it will always talk to us through our body if we're not listening to it through our emotions.
Well, I'm glad that you talked about that because, I would think that some people would think, oh, well, I'm retired. I don't really, have that burnout. But we do because, as you said, someone like myself, I've got grandchildren. I have a podcast. I do other things. You know, these days when you retire, it's not the end of your life, it's the beginning of your life, a new life, really.
Yeah.
And we can probably take on too much in our desire to still feel fulfilled and to still feel as if we're active. And you know, we don't want to be like, say, previous generations who retired and then they stopped, they didn't do anything. So perhaps even retirees are trying to wear that badge of honor of how many groups they can be with, how much travel we can do, how much we, you know, we can fill up our days and never have a moment. In fact, you often hear people say, oh, I don't know how I fit work in, you know,
Yeah.
because I haven't got time now that I'm retired.
Yes, yes, yes. That is a very common narrative. The other thing too is like physiologically, if there's underlying imbalances in the body system. So you've got parasites or adrenal fatigue or detox pathways. They don't necessarily just bounce back on their own the moment that you retire. I also don't I also don't buy into the narrative that things get worse as you get older. Like I think that you can actually age very gracefully and in a really
Mm.
restorative and nourishing way. Yes, there'll come a time that we all pass away and our organs will start to slow down and at some point fail, but there's still like decades of your life after you retire that if those
Yeah.
body systems haven't been addressed, if there's some big imbalances there, and it's very common for women too, moving into perimenopause and menopause for a lot of things to start exacerbating and showing up in a really big way.
Yes, and of course we're talking about menopause a lot more these days as well, which is a great thing because there's a lot more education out there, and I think women are taking more control of their menopause and what's happening to them, rather than just going to the doctor and have them say, "Oh, well, look, that's all just part of, you know, life. You've just got to put up with it." So I think that, you know, we are taking a little bit more control of our health and well-being. Now, in the book, you explain the three main body symptoms, and you also talk about the three key root cause contributors that we need to address. So I wonder, obviously we want people to read the book, but I wonder if you could just touch on those a little bit for me and explain what they are.
Yeah. So the body system. So the three main body systems are the neuroendocrine system that comprises of your adrenal glands, which are most predominantly important for secreting your stress hormones and regulating your stress. The mitochondria, so that's all about converting food into energy. So if that's not working very well, then you're going to be quite fatigued and maybe you even struggle to lose weight as well. Sex hormones, progesterone, estrogen, where are they at? And also the neurotransmitters. So testing for things like serotonin, which is really important for mood and sleep, dopamine and adrenaline, which are more about energy, motivation, creativity, joy. So that's the first body system. Second body system is the gastrointestinal system. So that's all about the pathogens that can grow in the gut, parasites, candida infections, bacterial infections. And a lot of these aren't tested by the GP either. So they are very inflammatory and can cause a lot of issues. Also looking at your beneficial microbiome. So much research that is connected to all the diseases. There's a lot of research around all these good bugs being really important for optimal health and digestive organs. So, how well are you breaking down foods? How strong is your gut lining? If things are seeping out into the bloodstream from the gut where they shouldn't be, and again, another inflammatory response can happen. And the third system is the detoxification system. So, how well is your liver, your kidneys, working? How well are you clearing and metabolizing toxins, or are they getting stuck in fat tissues and becoming another source of stress and inflammation?
And when you have a client come to you, what are the first steps that you take them through?
Yeah. So we always say, and when I say we, I'm talking about my husband as well, because he is a co-founder in our practice. So you can't have symptoms without there being some sort of body system imbalance. So the first step we do is we actually start running some tests to identify where those body systems are at. What you can now change. A lot of people get stuck when they're trying to self-treat their own health issues, or maybe they've gone to a naturopath or a health food store and, they've just been given a bunch of supplements or a diet. That's a little bit like throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. So getting
Mm,
clear on the body systems enables us to be able to, one, start supporting the body systems in a really targeted therapeutic way that's individual to what you actually need. Because you could have a symptom like fatigue and it could be coming from any one of those body systems, and maybe all three of them. And then from there, the big question is why? Why did the body systems burn out in the first place? I find that a lot of natural practitioners can practice in a way that it's like, oh, you've got this leaky gut or adrenal fatigue, take these supplements, do this diet. But it's not really addressing the underlying reason why the body system's burnt out. So that goes back to your original question, which I haven't answered yet, around the 3 root cause contributors. So then we're looking at what's happening in the mind, so the unconscious mind. How are you programmed? How are you wired? Because if we don't address that, then any lovely therapeutic support you do for the body systems is just going to unravel at some point, and it's only going to be short-lived improvements. And
mm,
then heal their body. So, what are some lifestyle things that we can start doing that's going to support the healing of these body systems? So, like the 3 foundational ones would be eating, sleeping, and moving. And then looking at the environment. So, is there anything in your environment that could block your ability to be able to heal, or that might even be poisoning you? Like in a real specific, literal way, toxins in skincare cleaning products that a lot of people use, purchase from the supermarket, contain some quite toxic ingredients that impact our body systems. And they're actually really easy to swap out. It's probably the easiest part of our ending body burnout method, is like, just buy new ones.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I notice, just to interrupt you there, you've got a section on how you can make a low tox home, and
Yeah.
also what the top 20 toxins in skincare and cleaning are, and then in food and drinks. And
Yeah.
I think that that's the other thing. We're not self-aware enough on what we're using, what we're putting into our bodies, and even with the environment that we live in, we just sort of go along and buy the same things and just use the same products, or buy the same packaged foods and things like that, without actually taking time out to just sort of do a good review of where you're at in your body, your mind, your soul, and your environment.
Mm.
And I think that that's the other thing. We always say we're too busy to prioritize.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is very interesting because it's the reason why someone's burnt out in the first place.
Mm,
And so people can get really stuck in the cycle of like, oh, I feel exhausted and overwhelmed and anxious, and my body's like inflamed and screaming at me, but I don't have time to actually do the thing that's going to help me. And like, that's actually not true. It's just a strategy that someone's playing. It's a
mm,
strategy to
mm,
try and keep them safe, because the deepest root cause always comes back to, I'm unsafe to be me. And so you develop these patterns, both like behaviorally, but also physically. It's like, well, if I keep you small and if I keep you sick and unwell, then you're going to stay small, and it's going to be less likely that you're going to be judged by other people.
mm,
And so whenever someone says, like, whether it's money or time is a big one, I just throw it back to them. It's like, you do have time. It's just a strategy that you're playing to keep yourself
mm,
safe. And that
mm,
changes the narrative really quickly for people. And they're like, what do you mean by that? And then that enables them to start digging into what the real reason is.
mm. And also there's that, we get into a rut, we get comfortable with our lifestyle, we get comfortable, or we put up with the lifestyle. And that fear of changing anything will also make us procrastinate, won't it? Because we know what we're doing at the moment, whether it's, we don't want to find out not good, because it might mean changing, and it might mean us doing a little bit of work to get to where we really need to be.
Yeah. Well, physiologically, our nervous system is wired for comfort and familiarity. Like that feels safe. And so the moment that you start entertaining the thought of changing something, the nervous system starts freaking out. It's like, no, 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 no. We would rather to stay in chaotic familiarity than actually move to change, even though we know that or think or, suspect, hope that things are going to be way different when we do that. And so that's why people can just start having a chat with themselves, just like noticing the resistances that they have, that if they have this desire to be well and healthy, and that might mean looking like changing X, Y, and Z. And then all of a sudden their whole system is like, no, we can't do that. And that often shows up as excuses. It's like the little chatter in the brain that, oh, I don't have time right now, I'll start that next week. Or, oh, no, I don't have enough money. Or, actually, maybe I'm not cut out for this. So this is as good as it gets. Like you have these little chatter things happening in your brain. With clients who start working with us, and that happens with everyone, like my best advice would be just talk to that part. It's just like, why, what are you trying to protect me from? Because then the more that you are able to have a talk to that part of you and also entertain the thought of change, the more familiar it becomes to your nervous system and the more likely you're able to do it rather than getting blocked from not doing it.
Yes. And by working with someone like yourself and your husband, that would take a little bit of the overwhelm away, because you've got someone guiding you, and that's always helpful to have that support with someone who you think, well, they know what they're talking about, they're going to help, and I don't have to do it all on my own. Even though I have to make the changes, I have to do what you're advising, it's not quite as difficult as saying, okay, I'm going to do something about this, but I don't know where to start.
Yeah, it definitely reduces the overwhelm. And a lot of people think that healing and health is complicated, but it's not. Like there's only so many ways the body burns out. And so when you can be held in the space with someone who has also walked the talk, like there's a lot of people who know stuff, but are they actually doing it? It's hard to hold space for another person. It's very easy to tell them what to do. I used to be a practitioner like that, where I'm like, run the labs. Yep, you just need to do this, this, and this, and print out like a really big treatment plan. And I'm like, off you go. It's going to be great. You're going to feel awesome. 90% of the people struggle to implement things, or might have for a couple of weeks, but then unconscious blocks came up and, life got in the way. So being able to hold space is really important, and knowing how to break through those blocks, because or a practitioner has already done it.
And so if I'm sitting listening to you today and I'm thinking, oh, I'm not really feeling that great, and I'm just not sure where to start. We've talked about going and seeing someone like yourself and having the lab tests done. But before we do that, is there anything we can do to start making life better till we can get to that stage?
Yeah. If you get my book, there is a lot of stuff that you can implement without a practitioner, like especially when it comes to the root cause contributors. So although you might need a practitioner to help with lab testing, but you could make like 2-3 little goals that it's like, okay, I'm going to drink a little bit more water. Or okay, that swap out of my cleaning products, that actually sounds like that could be an easy win. So you could start off, there's lots of little easy wins in the book that someone could take and implement. The other big thing though, I think, like for a very first step, is to sit with your body. So your body, although you might feel like, if someone's listening to this and they do resonate with like, yeah, my body is feeling burnt out, I have exhaustion, anxiety, depression, gut issues, autoimmune, sore joints, whatever those symptoms are for you might feel like your body's fighting against you, but it's actually fighting for you. And when you can learn to like just slow down and hold space for the body's messages, it's actually really surprising that you already have the answers that you need in order to be able to heal.
Yes, yeah. And I always think about how we need to listen to our body, because more so than our mind, our brain sometimes, because our body will give us signals that something, some of them are quite obvious, but there are other times when there are subtle messages coming from our body, and we just, need to be self-aware, need to listen to our body.
Yeah.
But what I like about the book too is that, as I said briefly, that you introduce three women, all with different backgrounds, and with that you give examples of what's wrong with them, or what they're experiencing, and then what you were doing to help them change, which I think is probably, as you say, if you read the book, it's going to help you even from that point of view, because you could say, oh yes, I identify with what Rose is going through, or Isla, or what was the other, Hazel. And I think that was a great way to present the book, because it's giving us really good living examples of what people are going through.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had a lot of readers say that they resonate with at least one. Some readers are like, I resonate with all three.
Oh, yeah, that's a bit of a worry.
It's a bit of a
But
worry.
yeah. But, things like, you talk about supplements, you talk about, uh, you know, all areas really, how we can detoxify our body, but also our home, the importance of sleep. Now, sleep is not really something that I find easy, and I have never been a good sleeper, and that's probably the only area of my life that I wish I could improve upon. But I've tried all the traditional type things, don't look at your screens, go to bed at the same time, all of that. And I still find it difficult to get a really good night's sleep where I wake up and I go, oh, yeah, ready to take on the day, rather than going, oh, where's the first coffee to get me going?
Yeah.
So what are some tips you could perhaps give me, just to try to get a good night's sleep? Because that can, if you're not sleeping well, after a while it really, and I don't want to go, oh, I'll just take a tablet to help me sleep. It's all about getting the quality sleep that I look for.
Yeah. So with sleep, if someone's having sleep issues, I think about three things to look into. So one would be sleep hygiene, which it sounds like you've done that. So for listeners too who might not understand what that means, that would be all the things you probably have heard of and know, maybe. So switching off screens before bed, dimming lights, really helping to support your own production of melatonin. So if we're constantly bombarded with bright lights after the sun goes down, then our circadian rhythm can become really confused. And then wind down time as well. So hot baths, essential oils, meditation, breath work, all that sort of stuff that can help you really get into a resting state. So if someone's done that, and a lot of people often start there because it makes a lot of sense and it's things that you can easily do yourself. When I say easily, some people struggle to do that. So sometimes it's not so easy. Then I'd be thinking about, okay, if that hasn't worked, maybe there might be something going on at a body systems level. So some body systems that can impact sleep if they're out of whack would be low serotonin levels. So if that neurotransmitter has been really low, and sometimes it can be really low even from birth, like you might have some maybe little genetic things going on, or there might have been something going on for mum in utero where your own production of it hasn't been optimal. So they're kind of the questions that I would ask a client, like when did it start? And that can help determine what body system might be out of whack. Other body systems can be adrenal fatigue. So adrenals secrete cortisol, which is your stress hormone, and it interacts with melatonin, which is your sleepy hormone. So if there's any imbalance of cortisol throughout the day, then it can absolutely affect your own production of melatonin. And then detox issues. So if someone's waking up kind of between 1 to 4 a.m., that's when the liver works the hardest. And if the liver is sluggish, it's not working optimally, it's going to have to try really, really hard, and it can literally keep people awake or wake them up in those early hours, and then people struggle to fall back to sleep. And sometimes it's not the first area I think about, but sometimes there can be some nasty bugs in the gut that keep you awake as well. I just had a
Mm,
client who was struggling with sleep, and she just worked on, it's called SIBO, so small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And she's like, oh my gosh, this last month since we've been killing off those bugs, I have slept like a baby. So
mm,
sometimes there can be some physical imbalances that are impacting sleep quality. And then the third thing I'd be thinking about is like the unconscious at an unconscious level as well, because when we fall asleep, we're at our most vulnerable. So there might
mm,
be even something like a past distressing event around sleep, or maybe not even to do with sleep, but it's just where your mind kind of clicks on. It kind of depends on why someone's not being able to fall asleep. Then there might be
mm,
something happening at an unconscious level that just needs to be cleared, identified, and cleared from the system so that it's now safe to sleep.
mm, mm.
Don't know if any of that
Okay.
resonates.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll tend to fall asleep and then a couple of hours later, and probably into a deep sleep, and then a couple of hours later, I'm awake. And my problem is that once I do wake up, if it's, say, after 1 o'clock, I just won't go back to sleep. And so, there are some days where I've gone to bed at 9 and I'm awake from 1 a.m. the next morning. So that sort of can catch up with you after a while. But anyway, it's not all about me, but I just thought I'd ask you, get a little session in while I can.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, which also brings me to the point, do you do can people come to you online, or do you have to, yeah,
Yeah, so
can you tell me a little bit about that?
we work predominantly with people online virtually. I mean, we do have a clinic space that's, where we work out of, but most of our clients are virtual Australia-wide. We have some international clients as well. The beautiful thing about like the lab testing side of things is that you actually collect your samples at home. So you don't have to physically come into the clinic from that side
Yeah,
of things. And even for
okay.
international people as well, like, we're hooked up with lab companies in other countries too.
Mm. Oh, well, that's good. And that's convenient too, because, a lot of people got used to this online world that we live in, and it's very convenient. And you can talk to anyone anywhere in the world. Now, we're coming to the end of our conversation, which has been fascinating, and it seems to have gone really quickly. And I do have a question that I ask all of my guests. But before I do that, Filipa, I just wanted to know if I've covered everything, or if there's something that you'd like to share or touch on. I will be sharing all the notes or links to you, the book, and your website, social media in the show notes. But is there anything in particular that we haven't covered that perhaps you'd like to just talk on before we finish?
I feel like we've covered a lot. I just want to say thank you
Mm,
for having me on here. And I hope that the listeners have gotten a lot of value out of this. I think the biggest take home message is, which I guess we haven't spoken on a lot, but at the deepest root of body burnout is a broken rapport and trust with self. So that's something that people can start kind of thinking about, and maybe even working on. How have I broken my trust with self or my relationship
mm,
with self? And kind of
mm,
thinking about it in terms of, like, if you're in a marriage, you have two pieces of you, your conscious mind and your unconscious mind, that are constantly trying to talk to and with each other. That's usually where the trust breaks apart,
mm,
that there's something deeper below the surface that doesn't feel safe, but maybe on the top end, it's like, no, everything's fine. And so I
mm,
just thought I'd leave that just as like a pondering question, that if you are
mm.
struggling with physical health issues and mental health issues, how have you lost rapport with yourself?
Yeah, and that's going back to this business of probably not wanting to confront something, how we're feeling, or what's happened in the past, or why, whatever blockage it is, and also that feeling that we have to be on all the time and we have to be happy all the time, and we can't, we just don't want to look down deeper. We need to make that time to connect with ourselves. So it's really been lovely having you today, and I've enjoyed our conversation. I'm really enjoying the book. I haven't quite finished it yet, but it's like a little manual that you can just refer to, I think, when you need it. But what question I'd like to ask you is, what does being a woman living well mean to you?
The first word that comes to my mind is trust again. When I deeply love and trust myself, then wellness is the default. Like, I don't even have to try to access it or to make it happen. It just happens.
Yeah. Oh, that's a perfect answer. And it just reminds me, we need to build a loving relationship with ourselves like we have with others in our lives. So I think that's a great note to finish on. So thanks for joining me today, Filipa. It's been lovely to meet you, and talking about your book, Ending Body Burnout, Find Your Spark. And I think that that's a lovely little byline. So thanks again for your time.
Thank you so much.
Well, what an interesting conversation I had with Filipa Bellette, author of Ending Body Burnout, Find Your Spark. There was a lot of valuable information in our interview today, and I hope that you enjoyed that and you've got some takeaways that you can ponder about. I'd love you to share the episode with a friend, because I'm sure that they would benefit from listening as well. And also see if you can get yourself a copy of the book, Ending Body Burnout. I'll be putting all the links in the show notes. Well, that's it until next time. So remember to live well, enjoy life, and most of all, be a woman living life your way. Bye for now.